Hello team, welcome to my session on Coffee with Prabh, and today we're going to discuss about some 30 questions which is mapped with the CCSP domain 2, 3, 4, 5. In this video, I have discussed about some scenario questions which help you to improve your reading habit, thought process, what you need to know from a cloud security point of view. I already did some couple of videos in past, and my suggestion is that do check that video also, because that give you also insight of CCSP practice parameter. And if you're new to the channel, do subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss my future videos on a similar topic. My name is Prabh Nair. For more information, do check my LinkedIn profile. So without wasting a time, let's start with the first part. Thank you. Okay, so first coffee shot. You are a cloud security consultant that utilize the cloud services extensively, and the company has recently expanded its cloud usage involving the multiple departments accessing various cloud resources. You are tasked with enhancing the security of the cloud infrastructure, and one of your primary goal is to secure the management plane to prevent unauthorized access and potential security breaches. Based on the scenario, why must you prioritize strict access control measure for management plane in your cloud security strategy? Now, those who are not aware about management plane is basically the interface by which you manage the cloud. One thing always remember in CCSP exam preparation, our topmost priority is to protect the management plane. So any question talking about in the exam or any practice question which focusing on management plane, that is the first thing we need to protect. See, what is management plane? See, when you're trying to connect AWS console or Azure console, so the interface what you see from which you launch machines and all that, that is a management plane. So we always prefer two important practice. Make sure the management plane as a user you try to access from a dedicated network, and second is the management plane itself is basically protect with a multi-factor authentication. Now in this particular question, they're talking about why must you prioritize and give security to the management plane. So we have an option. The first is to facilitate more democratic and decentralized management approach, which allow all departments equal control over the cloud resources, which does not make sense with the topic. So we are eliminating A. Option B, to limit and control access, ensure that only authorized person can perform critical cloud infrastructure management function. That makes sense because with the help of this panel, you can able to manage the machines. So C says to prioritize the cost saving measure by reducing number of user with management access. That is the second best answer because we want to make sure that management plane should not be access to everyone. And if you're giving an access, it should be based on a need to know. Option D, increase the complexity of a cloud environment, making more challenging for a potential attacker to navigate. That is also requirement, but there's no point of adding a complexity, because if you're adding a complexity from management plane perspective, I don't want the person who managing he also face struggle. So our ultimate goal is to protect the management plane, because if management plane is hacked, entire cloud is basically hacked. So whenever we give access, make sure we should limit the access, we should control the access. So we prefer role-based access control, or we prefer principle of least privilege when you're giving the any user access of management plane. So that is why we basically going with the B, because if management plane is compromised, everything is compromised. Is it clear? So let's move to the next coffee shot, which is called coffee shot 2. Interesting question. Document to assess the effectiveness and reliability of cloud service provider. HVAC system. The keyword is basically HVAC system. Okay. So we're looking for the document to assess the effectiveness and reliability of a cloud service provider HVAC system. HVAC system is called as a heat, ventilation, air conditioning. Which of the following document best serve the purpose? So I'm looking for the effectiveness and reliability of HVAC system, which is used in data center, like heat, ventilation, air conditioning, by which we basically maintain the appropriate temperature in the data center, and by that we maintain the availability. So question talking about which document best assess the effectiveness. So if you see option A, CSP ISO 27001, focus on overall information security management system. We can go with 27001 because it cover end-to-end people, process and technology controls, but it is just providing me certificate that we are 27001 certified. And the keyword was saying effectiveness and reliability. It will not give you the detailed information about control reports, like do they have appropriate HVAC systems, controls and all that. It just say VS 27001 certified. Second is the CSP SOC 2 report detailing control over the security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, privacy, which makes sense because when you go for the SOC 2 report, type 1 and type 2, it gives you the detailed information about control effectiveness. Okay, not just a certificate or attestation, sorry. C says CSP SLA outlining uptime and performance guarantee. See, we are talking about right now core physical control, and C is more about talking about uptime. See, giving things in SLA, okay, is one way of giving an assurance, but that is not a direct assurance for my requirement. Understood? So if the cloud provider is giving you assurance that, okay, we are giving you this kind of an uptime, it's not necessary it is related to the HVACs. Okay, yeah. So if the question talking about we are in a process of finalizing cloud provider, how to verify, or the requirement need to be agree on uptime and all that, then makes sense. SLA makes sense. But question here is assess the effectiveness of a document itself. And option D is says CSP business continuity and disaster recovery plan detailing response to environmental disaster. Again, D is a document which basically reflect that, okay, you have a BCP plan in place and that is adequate control. But question is not talking about presence and absence of contingency plan. Question was talking about what is a control which validate the effectiveness of HVAC system. So the only option which is very close is B. Exactly. So B is the most closest answer because SOC 2 type 1 and type 2 basically provide the detailed information about the control and control effectiveness. So that is where the answer is basically B. Let's move to the next question. Thank you. You are a cloud security consultant. Coffee shot number 3. You are a cloud security consultant tasked with enhancing the resiliency and availability of your organization cloud-based services. Resiliency means able to continue in the case of downtime. The organization has faced challenge with service interruption due to the single point of failure in their current CSP infrastructure. It means they already have a CSP. With that, they're facing a single point of failure. As a part of your strategy to address this challenge, you are evaluating a new CSP and their infrastructure design. Based on the scenario, what is the best strategy to adopt in order to ensure high availability? The first keyword is high availability. Okay. And mitigate the risk of service disruption. So here in this question, the problem statement is high availability they need. And they also looking for the solution for a service disruption, because see, service disruption can lead to the business loss and all that. And they are already facing this issue with the current requirement. So let's go by the option. First is implement a strategy focus on single highly reputable CSP to streamline the management operation. We can go for that. So we have one cloud provider which has a multiple availability zone. If one availability zone is down, then another availability zone is there. But it has a concern. What about data? Okay, so we don't need to assume in the question. Let's take example. Okay, we are not going with the assumption, because if you go by the assumption, one CSP have a 3 availability zone. That is also okay. If one availability zone is down, from the other availability zone, they can able to provide me services. If you go by the requirement. But the concern is if the entire zone is down, then okay. Second concern is we want sensitive data. One availability zone in India and another availability zone in Australia. So we have to move data also. So cost wise, it's okay. But if I see from a point of view resiliency, it doesn't make sense. Okay. Option B is prioritizing CSP that offer redundant connectivity and multiple independent service providers to eliminate the single point of failure, which makes sense. Like offering the multiple connectivity with multiple provider makes sense, no doubt in that, because if one provider is down, we can use another one, which is part of my multi-cloud or hybrid cloud. Option C, choose a CSP based on a lower cost to maximize the budget efficiency, rely on the external insurance for service outage. Definitely we can go for the option C, sorry for this formatting. We can go for option 3 in that case, when the risk is basically transfer process we have or risk within the appetite we have. In that case, we can go for it. And if you see the option D, which is called focus on CSP that offer the most advanced technology irrespective of the redundancy and failover, we cannot assume even the one CSP, or if I go for that, even he offer me great redundancy, if you don't have alternate one, it's a concern. So for me, the answer is basically B, because I have to look for a multiple independent service which is not interrelated, by which we can able to eliminate. So even I'm going with the one CSP, they should have a different power provider. So if one power is down, we can use another one. We can have a redundant internal connection. If one connection is down, we can take the connection from other provider. So that's something we have to look for. That's what the answer is, B for beta. Okay, let's move to the next question. Thank you. Very, very, very good question. And you might get this kind of a language. So in the realm of cloud security, supply chain risk management is a critical component that ensures security and integrity of service and product obtained from external vendor. Okay. Given the complexity of cloud environment and the reliance on third-party vendor for various service and component, it become imperative for a cloud security professional to scrutinize and manage the risk associated with external entity. What is a crucial aspect of managing SCRM in the cloud environment? SCRM means supply chain risk management. Now, before I basically answer this question, I want to explain you what is supply chain. So example, like this is me as a customer. Okay. And I'm taking a service from a one cloud. And this cloud is basically taking a service from other cloud. So we have vendor 1, we have a vendor 2, we have a vendor 3, and we have a vendor 4. Now, doing a risk assessment of this entire supply chain, that is called as supply chain risk assessment. See, for me as a customer, okay, for me, cloud is a vendor. Okay, so when I take services from the cloud, we have a very limited visibility because they have the one who develop everything. So only thing by which you can able to manage the risk is contract and SLAs, because that is how you can able to offset. Now in this question, they're saying that, okay, when you're dealing with a third party and all that, you need to manage the risk associated with the external entities. So question say, what is a crucial aspect of managing SCRM in the cloud environment? So we have option A, regularly updating firewall and antivirus software to protect against external threat introduced by the vendor. Again, see, if I'm using firewall is basically more on the operation level. Definitely by firewall and antivirus, we can able to monitor what kind of a connection is coming. Option B, assessing a risk posed by vendor policies and process to identify potential security vulnerability. Makes sense, because policy is a foundation of any organization. Policy is a culture. Policy reflect the intent of the people. So example, like if I'm taking a company services from firewall technology example. Okay, I'm taking some services from firewall security services. So their policy should reflect how they basically work. The policy should reflect how they manage the activity. The policy should reflect about how the security practice works. So policy definitely is a governance document. Option C, implement the two-factor authentication for all vendor account to enhance the security. We can go for that, but the cost is high. There's no point of having a multi-factor for every user account, and ensure that all vendor supplied software is open source to facilitate the easier security audit. Again, if I go by the D, okay, it doesn't make sense because it's not necessary we only have open source. So whenever you're dealing with a third party, request the policy document and verify the policies align with the requirement or not. That is why the answer is basically B for beta, because policy is the foundation of any organization. Okay, let's move to the next question. Thank you. Okay, so you are a cloud security architect for a healthcare organization. Your team is tasked with analyzing historical patient data stored on-prem to identify trend and improve treatment outcome. However, privacy regulation like HIPAA, which is called Health Insurance Portability and Accountability, strictly protect patient information. Uploading a raw data directly to the cloud for analysis is not an option due to the compliance concern. So which of the following approach best balance the need for data analysis with the patient's privacy? Now, sometimes what happens, we need to move data for processing and all that. And but because of compliance, we can't do that. So sometimes what happens, we have to see some balance options by which we can able to run the business also and maintain the privacy. And that was a question they're talking about. And HIPAA is very specific to the healthcare. And one important thing you need to remember is in HIPAA, the entity who covered the data, who processing data in healthcare, that called as a covered entity. And when any company dealing with a cloud provider and they move data, so they have to sign one agreement, which is called business associate agreement, which ensure the necessary level of control you need to have on data. Just for your information from a CCSP exam perspective. Now here, the question was talking about how to analyze data with privacy, balance and all that. So option is, first is fully anonymize the data by removing all patient identifier and demography. If you remove, see, anonymization is basically mean removing all the identifier. And then you cannot able to restructure data back. So if you go by A, okay, you will not able to correlate the data because we need to use data for analysis. Option B, implement strong encryption for the entire data set and upload it for the cloud, relying on access control to restrict unauthorized access. If you encrypt the data, you cannot able to process the data. Option C, apply the pseudonymization by replacing the patient identifier with a unique code and allow some analysis while minimizing re-identification risk, which makes sense because when you go by the pseudo-anonymization, you're mapping the patient data or PI data with one value, and with that value you can able to retrieve the data back. Example like patient name is John, ID is 2727. So instead of using a patient name, we use 2127 with other rest of the health of information. So tomorrow if I want to retrieve back with the help of ID, we can able to, so there is a connection. So ID is mapped with the number. Okay, but in the anonymization, we just replacing, we cannot revert back, but in pseudo we can revert back. And the question talking about analysis, and that is basically required to connect the dots. And option D is called as a partner with third-party data analysis companies, share the encrypted data under the strict contractual agreement. Again, if you encrypt the data, how can you basically process? So the option is A and C look same, but I will go for a C because I want to use some portion data for analysis. And if you fully anonymize, you can't able to process the data. And that is the reason I'm going with the answer C for Charlie. Okay, so next coffee shot. When configuring access to virtualization management tool for employees within the organization, which of the following practice is most important to ensure authorization levels are appropriate to the usage of functions? See, virtualization management tool, again, it's a tool to manage the machines and everything. Okay. And the question specifically talking about authorization level for a usage of functions. One fundamental principle always remember, when you're giving access to any tool management and all that, either it will be role-based control or either it will be principle of least privilege. If both is there, then we'll go with the principle of least privilege. Okay, so let's see the options. Granting all user administrative privilege to speed up the system management task, that is the last day in the company if you're giving everyone a same level of privilege. Option B, utilizing a single network for both administrative and general user traffic to simplify the network design. Definitely it is a very good point, but if the administrative interface access and simple user interface access will be in the same network, then it can be vulnerable to the eavesdropping man-in-the-middle attack and they can able to intercept the password. Option C, implement need to know restrictions and least privilege principle, including a use of an isolated network or encryption where possible. Definitely, see, if you're talking about the managing the administrative interface and all that, if I basically draw this scenario here, let's take example. So we have a user 1, we have a user 2, and we have a user 3. So if they're basically connecting with the with the help of virtualization management toolset to access the cloud environment. Okay, now this user is basically connecting with a machine, but this user is basically connecting through admin console to manage the cloud. If both are in the same network, he can able to intercept the information. Okay, so we need to have a different isolated network and the session must be encrypted. So that was the point of the document, including a use of an isolated network and encryption. And D say encouraging user to share accounts when accessing the virtualization management tool to reduce the number of account required. Last point is okay, we need to have a list account so we have a better visibility. But if you're having a share account, it is difficult to track the accountability. Even we can reduce the accountability, but even your share account bring more accountability issues. So we never recommend that. So only option left is basically C. Whenever you want to access the management consoles and all that, it should be connect from an isolated network, and make sure whenever you're giving access, it should be based on the principle of least privilege. Now let's move to the next question. Thank you. Okay, next question. A cloud security consultant is evaluating a security measure of a cloud service provider and notice that CSP virtualization management tool and supporting infrastructure lack a systematic approach to managing changes. It means any random user is coming and doing the changes. To improve the security posture and ensure the infrastructure remain in a known hardened state, which of the following practice should the consultant recommend the CSP implement immediately? So option A, implement an open change policy where all users can apply changes to virtualization management tool and infrastructure without prior approval to encourage innovation, rapid deployment. It is okay without approval if you go, it have a rapid deployment, but if without approval, if you're introducing any change, it basically brings a new threats and vulnerability. Option B, adopt a formal change management process, which makes sense. Okay, that include assessing the impact of proposed change, ensure the risks are adequately mitigated, and maintaining the infrastructure is known in hardened state, which makes sense. Because by having a change management process, you can able to track the changes, and it also good from a security practice of configuration management, because now we have a uniformity of the configuration management, and any kind of a changes in the configuration is going through a change management process. So we have a centralized way to manage and track the changes. Option C, focus solely on automating all the changes to a virtualization management tool infrastructure, relying on technology to manage the security implication of change without human oversight. See, if you go by the C, only automations, solely on automation does not make sense. Even to promote the automation, first we need to have a structured change management process. This option will be great in that case if you have a dynamic environment, effective change management process you have, and proactively respond to major changes more effectively, more faster, then we can go for automation. But right now, infrastructure itself is not systematically managing changes. Option D, eliminate configuration management practice to increase the flexibility, speed in deploying changes. Assume that cloud environment naturally adapt to changes without significant security risk. Come on, we cannot assume that. So the best practice is basically called as a B. Introduce a change management process, and through that we can have a structured process of managing a change. That is the reason I'm going with the answer B for beta. Let's move to the next question. Okay. In the context of securing a self-managed virtualization environment, a cloud security consultant emphasizes the importance of minimizing the attack surface while maintaining operational efficiency. This approach involves the careful selection of toolset used for managing a virtualization management infrastructure. Which principle should guide the installation of this toolset to align with the best practice for security and functionality? So we're looking for both. So it means we are looking to manage the virtualization management, but the virtualization management bring more functionality, and then more functionality bring more increase of attack surface, because we have a very simple logic is if we increase the functionality is more chance to exploit, and if we have a limited functionality it is easy to manage. And the question was talking about maintaining operational efficiencies. So option A, installing as many tool set as possible to ensure all potential functionalities are covered, thereby maximizing the capability of virtualization environment. See, we can go with the second statement, maximize the capability, but I'm not agree with the first part, installing as many as tool set, because it also brings the governance issue. Option B, prioritizing the installation of a tool set that offer the most comprehensive set of feature, regardless of actual need of the environment, to prepare for any possible scenario. Definitely, we can prioritize the tool set which is required as per the business function, and we always look for the comprehensive set of feature. But if you go for comprehensive set of feature, if it hacked, then the hacker also get the comprehensive set of picture. Okay, so regardless of actual need of environment, it does not make sense. According to my environment, I will go for the solution, not regardless of any environment. Option C, choose the toolset, choosing a toolset based on the principle of minimum necessary functionality, ensuring that only essential features are added to reduce the potential vulnerability, which makes sense. Only enable that which is required. And D, say focusing exclusively on open source toolset to leverage the community driven security updates and feature enhancement without assessing their alignment with the specific environment need. So D is definitely removed because it's not necessary. We can go for open source. So left with A and C. Sorry, B and C. See, B we can go till the part if it said prioritize the installation toolset that offer the most comprehensive set of feature. But regardless of the actual need of the environment does not make sense, because based on an environment only, I want a solution. If my environment requires limited functionality, I will enable that limited functionality only, because if you increase more functionality, it brings the concern. So that is the reason I'm going with the answer C, where I will choose the interface which providing me a limited functionality or required as per the limit functionality, and it is easy to manage. Is it clear? So by this way, we can manage the security also and functionality also. That is why the answer is basically C. Let's go by the next coffee shot. Thank you. Okay, so next coffee shot. Cloud security consultant is evaluating a security measure of organization DNS infrastructure to mitigate the risk of attack that involve corrupting a DNS cache with false information, which could be redirect user to malicious site, resulting in the theft of sensitive information or distribution of the malware. Makes sense. Based on the consultant expertise, which of the following is considered most effective countermeasure against such attack? Which attack? Falsify information, ensuring the integrity of DNS response. So let's understand how it works. So let's take example. This is basically my Facebook, and this is basically the DNS of the Facebook. Okay, this is the cache which mention 1.1.1.1 map to fb.com. Okay, and fb.com IP is 1.1.1.1. So as a user, he looking for facebook.com. and it say, okay, facebook.com is on 1.1.1. So it read 1.1.1.1. And by this way, user is connected with the Facebook website. Now there is an attacker. He basically pushed this DNS server to believing that, okay, I am your authorized DNS server. Please find the new entry. Now Facebook is on 2.1.1.1, which is actually a website hosted by the hacker. 2.1.1.1. Now next time when user approach Facebook DNS, what is Facebook? So they say it is redirect on 2.1.1.1. And then it connected to the 2.1.1.1. And by this way, the page is delivered the phishing page to the user to claim it's a Facebook page, and he enter the username password. And that was the question talking about how to mitigate that. So if you go by the option A, WAF, implement the WAF. WAF is more about monitoring the application level content and blocking the application attack. It is more about manipulating a client query and manipulating a cache. Option B, VPN, is used to connect the parameter over the WAN, and through this we can able to send the data. So it does not have any connect with the question. Option C, deploy DNSSEC, which makes sense, and restrict the DNS zone transfer. See, DNS zone transfer is all about restricting a zone record to the particular servers. Okay, that is called DNS zone transfer. Example, like this is basically my DNS server, which is actually handling the user, and this is another DNS server. So one is that we are retrieving the information, that is called DNS zone transfer, because data in the DNS stored in a form of zone. So we're trying to retrieve the data. So restricting a DNS zone transfer does not make sense. Okay, because question was talking about DNS cache with false information. So we need to make sure we're getting all the updates from a respective authorized server. So if it's actually authorized DNS server and he updating this DNS server, make sure all the resource records sign with their private keys. So when this DNS server receive the record, it will verify all the record with the respective public key. So by which we can able to restrict the entries from the dynamic updates. And here in this question, it say rise of attack involve corrupting a DNS cache. So if the records coming from an authorized DNS server signed with a private key, it will be verified with a public key. And that is the reason answer is basically C for Charlie. By having a DNSSEC, you can able to restrict the user to a specific records. And we can only ensure only authorized records will be part of the DNS server. But if the question was specifically talking about they're updating the records, they're validating the records, they're pulling the information. So in that case, restrict DNS zone transfer can be the also good option. Okay, but the most preferable option to restrict the entries is going with the C. Okay, a cloud security consultant is designing a cloud storage solution for a client seek to enhance their data management capability. The consultant recommend implementing a storage cluster to improve the client infrastructure. This recommendation is based on the primary purpose of creating a pooled storage resource. What is the primary purpose of creating a pool of storage in a storage cluster as highlighted by the consultant? Now question they're talking about, they're looking for something pool cluster, because if one storage is down, from another storage we can able to retrieve. And by creating a pool storage, you can also improve the read and write performance. So we have options. Option A, to decrease the overall storage capacity available to the organization, ensuring that data is stored more compactly and efficiently, which does not make sense. It's completely opposite of question. Because question say consultant recommend implementing a storage cluster to improve the client infrastructure, and this recommendation is based on the primary purpose of creating a pooled storage. So if one storage is down or if one storage, so we're sharing the storage, multiple storage as a one unit, so that we can able to improve the read and write performance. So question talking what is the primary purpose of creating a pool of storage. Option B, to provide dedicated storage area for backup and archival purpose only, segregating it from an active data storage does not make sense, because we can use this for the production data also. Option C, to reduce the complexity of the storage infrastructure, requiring more specialized IT staff to manage the environment. It's not necessary, because if you're talking about the pool storage and all that, it is not about from a user management perspective. It was more from the read and write performance. Option D, provide reliability, increase performance, or additional capacity, enhancing the organization data management capability, which makes sense, because if you go for a pool storage, then we can sharing a load across the multiple storage. And by this way, we can able to improve the read and write performance. And that is the reason answer is basically D for Delta. Let's move to the next question. Thank you. Okay, so next coffee shot. You are the CSO at leading cloud service provider. Given the increasing complexity of cyber threats and need for robust security measure, you are reviewing the company cloud infrastructure to identify potential vulnerabilities and enhance security protocol. A significant part of your infrastructure rely on the virtualization technology for deploying, managing and scaling services efficiently. Definitely, because it saves cost. Recognizing the critical nature of your virtualization management tool, their vulnerabilities to cyber attack, you consider the best practice for safeguarding these essential assets. Fine. In the context of enhancing the security of virtualization management tool within your cloud infrastructure, which measure is primarily recommend to safeguard these tools and ensure all virtualization management activities are conducted securely. See, when you get such kind of a question, you need to focus on word by word, because one word will basically change the answer. Now in this, they're talking about using a virtualization for the management, and they're also talking about the security. So let's go by the options. Option A, implementing strict access control to restrict user access to virtualization management tool. Definitely, we can give a principle of least privilege need to know based on that, because if the person get access to virtualization management tool, he can able to manage the machine. And if you're thinking from a negative manner, if someone hack into that console, then he can control the entire infrastructure. Second is utilizing a network isolation to segregate the virtualization management network from customer environment, which also makes sense. Because if you can segregate the virtualization management from the other IT networks and all that, you can able to pass the information more securely and all that. Third is deploying the antivirus software on all the virtualization management server. That doesn't provide adequate security, because it's only talk about one aspect to protect against the virtualization for the virus and all that. And D is said conducting regular penetration test on the virtualization management network. Definitely it is used to assess the security of the things, but they're saying that safeguarding the tools. Okay, so if you have a separate network through that you accessing console, that basically provide the most effective security. That is why the answer is basically B for beta, utilizing network isolation to segregate the virtualization management network from the customer environment. Because if you give the separate console through which you basically manage the environment, it is more secure, along with principle of least privilege and need to know on the interface level. So let's move to the next question. Your organization operates within a highly regulated industry, handling the sensitive data that required compliance with stringent security standard. As the information cloud security manager, you are tasked with enhancing the security posture of your cloud-based resource, particularly in the realm of cryptography, key management, and data encryption. Definitely, you are exploring the option to ensure the highest level security for the cryptography key, which are critical for encrypting and sensitive data stored in the cloud and controlling access to cloud resources. After thorough research and consultation, you learn that some CSP offer options that align with your security requirement. The requirement is key management and all that. Considering the scenario and your organization high security requirement, which of the following option would best enhance your cloud security posture regarding a key management? It's a very good question actually. In this, they're talking about using a cryptographic key and all that. So let's understand the options. Option A, utilize the cloud-based HSM service offered by a CSP. Rely on the provider security measure to protect your cryptographic key. See, in the option, they're saying that definitely your cryptographic key, but where it is stored, it's not clear. Second is, in the option A, they're saying cloud-based HSM. So we also depending upon HSM. So depending upon HSM, and they will protect my key, I don't know where the key is stored. So that option is not very clear. Option B, integrate a solution that allow your organization to completely control over the generation, management, storage of cryptographic key, which makes sense, because if you store data in the cloud, that is the one of the most effective way to secure the data in the cloud. If you get any question in the exam talking about most effective way to secure the data in the cloud, answer is encryption only. But it does not mean that, okay, you will store the key also with the same cloud provider. Then it is single point of access. So option C say that rely on the software-based cryptography key system that operate entirely within the cloud environment, minimize the physical hardware dependency. See, if you are using a cloud provider key, it is okay. But from a security point of view, it's a concern, because in the same cloud you're storing a data. So I will not recommend that. Option D is outsourcing cryptographic key management to third party that specialize in a key management outside the cloud infrastructure. That makes sense. But actually D is a part of a B. Okay. We have to use our own key, but it's up to us. How do we need to generate our own key, or we can rely on third party? So you can say like that, D is a part of a B. That's what the answer is, B for beta. That basically cover your D as an answer. Okay. So let's move to the next question. As the information cloud security manager for rapidly growing tech company, you are in a charge of overseeing migration of critical business application to the cloud. Given the company reliance on cloud-based service for its day-to-day operation, ensuring the high availability and reliance on the network infrastructure is paramount. So network infrastructure is very important. Recognizing the potential risk associated with the single point of failure in a virtualized environment, you embark on designing a network architecture that mitigates this risk. So the challenge lies in ensuring that not a single component failure such as network cable being unplugged or severe and could be disrupt the connectivity for the thousand of hosts relying on the cloud service. In the context of enhancing the network resilience and redundancy for your cloud infrastructure, which of the following strategy is most effective in preventing single point of failure from impacting the availability of the cloud services? Now in this question, so we have a 2-3 summaries. One is we're looking for a high availability. We have to make sure we should not unplug any cable, and because for them availability is a most important priority and they want to prevent the single point of failure, and they're looking for a solution from that perspective. So options are implementing a strict access control policy to physically secure network cables equipment. But if you have a one set of network cable and someone remove that, does not make sense. Okay. Option B, regularly updating firmware and software for network device to ensure but they operate efficiently. But this does not something address your resiliency and redundancy, because redundancy basically mean multiple cables. So if one cable is down, we have another cable. Option C, design the network with dual NIC and multiple ISP connection to ensure the redundancy. That makes sense, because if you take an example of the data center, if you take an example of a data center, so like example, this is the data center we have. Okay, so we have one NIC and we have another NIC. So one NIC is coming from Airtel, one is coming from Jio. If one is down, we can use the other. So we always refer two important things. We need to have a multiple ISP connection and multiple power connection from a two different provider. Always remember. So that's why I say designing network with dual NIC and multiple ISPs connection to ensure the redundancy definitely makes sense, because if one network is down, from there another, we can able to continue services, and it can basically help you to maintain the resiliency. But if you see the option D, it's say implementing a comprehensive disaster recovery plan that include regular backup and resource testing to ensure data integrity availability. Again, it is more from a data and strategic perspective. We can still go for the D in that case, with the question talking about sustaining a business plan and all that. But question is not talking about sustaining a business plan. Please read it carefully. They say the challenge in the lies of ensuring not a single component failure, such as network cable being unplugged or severe, could disrupt the connectivity. So problem statement is handling this connectivity. Okay, otherwise the question talking about sustaining a business and all that, what is a plan we should introduce, and answer is D for Delta. But question was specifically talking about network cable, that is where the answer is C, because this option is the most direct effective approach to mitigate the risk of single point of failure in a network infrastructure. By having a dual NIC in each critical server and connection from multiple ISP, the network design ensure that one NIC fail or one ISP experience downtime, the system can continue to operate using an alternative path. And this redundancy is crucial for maintaining a high availability and reliance on the network, ensure that connectivity of thousands of hosts rely on the cloud service is not disrupted due to the single point of failure. And that is the reason we went with the C. And newly proposed D, which focus on implementing comprehensive disaster recovery plan, include the regular backup, ensure the data integrity, service continuity from an operational perspective. That's the reason. But this is not a direct in preventing network disruption. That is why we basically went with the C as an answer. Okay. As a cloud security manager, tasked with ensuring the operational resilience of your organization's cloud-based service, you understand the importance of selecting a cloud service provider that can guarantee high availability for your critical application. High availability is crucial to maintain continuous service delivery and user satisfaction. It is quantified in terms of 9 for instances, like 9 equates to 99.99% uptime, or roughly 5 minutes of downtime per year. Given this context, when evaluating the potential CSP, you are focused on verifying their ability to meet your high availability requirement. Which document is most essential to review to confirm the CSP commitment to achieve and maintaining the desired level of uptime for the service? It's a very interesting question, because question was talking which document is most essential to review. Okay, so options are SLA, service level agreement. Second is called as a data processing agreement. Third is service level requirement, and D is high level audit report. See, question was talking about from availability, and we will review that document which is confirm the commitment of CSP. So SLA makes sense, okay, because when we shortlisting any cloud provider, when they're sharing their cloud SLAs and all that, from there we get the visibility what is the commitment they have agreed. Option B, data processing agreement, is more from the data privacy perspective, and question is not at all talking about data privacy, so B is removed. Service level requirement, you basically share, like this is my expectation, but question was specifically talking about which document is most essential to review the confirm the CSP commitment. And high availability audit report is basically is also very important, okay, because that is basically verify what is there and what is need to be defined. But if the question is specifically talking about which document is most essential to review to confirm the CSP commitment to achieve maintain the desired level of uptime for the services, desired level, this question is not talking about which is a document which is used to verify the vendor claim to be. It is just talking about document is most essential to review and confirm the CSP commitment. So high availability audit report talk about the past information, but what is the current service, that is basically captured in the SLA, service level agreement, and that is where the answer is A for alpha. If the question is talking about which document is basically most essential to review to validate the CSP commitment or what they claim to be, then answer is basically high availability audit report. But the keyword was talking about maintaining a desired level of uptime, commitment and all that. That's the reason we basically went with the answer A. Let's move to the next question. Your organization is expanding its cloud infrastructure to support a critical application that demand high availability and minimal downtime. Given the need for seamless operation, despite potential hardware failure, you have been tasked with selecting a most appropriate architecture designed to ensure operational resilience. Keyword is operational resilience. Which architecture choice align with the goal of maintaining a service continuity even in the event of physical hardware issue? Very good question. So here they want a seamless operation and they want to ensure the operational resilience. And second keyword is basically maintaining a service continuity. So options are implement a single instance VM setup on a robust physical server, relying on the high quality hardware to minimize the risk of failure. It is okay till if it's saying that, okay, reliance on the high availability requirement. If you see that word, high availability, high quality hardware, that's okay. But implementing single instance, single point of failure. Option B is utilizing a cluster architecture with a live migration capability where the VM automatically transfer to another physical host upon detecting a hardware failure, ensuring the minimal service interruption, which makes sense. Because when we are having a cluster architecture, so example like we have a server 1. Okay, so we have a server 1, we have a server 2, and we are all clustered together. So any request is coming, if the one server is down, we can use another server to continue. Okay. Third is deploying a redundant physical server in an active passive configuration, manually switching to the backup server in the case of hardware malfunction. Manually switching is a keyword because of which I'm not going with a C. Even when you go for CCSP exam, be careful with this keyword because these keywords change the answer. See, deploying redundant physical server in an active passive configuration till this okay. Okay, but this is also demand downtime. But the question want ensure the operation resilience. It means continuous services, and they want to maintain the service continuity also. C doesn't offer continuity because it's active passive. If one is basically down, if the primary is providing services, if that is down, then second will go active. It is not active. And option D says establish a distributed file system that replicate data across multiple servers. Focus on data redundancy rather than operational continuity. Again, this point is talking more from a data backup point of view. So for that reason, I'm going with the answer B for beta because the B is basically make better sense for the question. Okay, let's move to the next question. Thank you. Again, an interesting question. In the process of enhancing the security measure for your cloud-based database, you decided to implement encryption as recommended by your CSP. Fine. While database encryption is a powerful tool protecting the sensitive information against unauthorized access, you're also aware that introducing encryption bring about certain operational challenge. Definitely, if it's encrypted data you want to process and all that is a concern we have. What is the primary challenge associated with implementing database encryption in a cloud environment, especially concerning maintaining data management practice? Scope of the question is data management practice. You want to manage the data where you basically create, store, use, process, transfer, destroy. So that is part of a data management practice. And they're talking about from an encryption point of view, what is the challenge? See, if you're introducing encryption, you're achieving a confidentiality. And too much confidentiality will impact the availability. Okay, So options are database encryption increase the complexity of data access control, require more sophisticated user authentication mechanism. That is not a challenge actually. Okay, still it is a challenge, no doubt. Second is implementing a database encryption make it harder to perform data replication, affecting data availability, disaster recovery strategy. Definitely when you're replicating data, if it's encrypted data, the destination application will not able to understand. When we need to retrieve the data, if it's an encrypted state, it's difficult to find the encrypted data. So makes sense. Option C, encryption add the layer of computation overhead to database operation, slightly reducing the overall performance of data retrieval processing. See, this C we can able to manage, no doubt. With the help of extra hardware, we can able to manage the computation, and default that is an issue, but that is not a primary issue we're talking about this in this question. Question says challenge associated with implementing database encryption in a cloud environment, particularly concerning data management practice. Okay, so they're talking about data management practice, reviewing the data on regular basis. So C can be addressable in that case if we have a hardware and all that, so that can be manageable. D say database encryption necessitate the additional storage space for encrypt data, leading to increased cost of data storage, which is wrong because whatever the data you encrypted is the same size they take. The only primary concern when you're implementing an encrypted data is if it's encrypted, then performing data replication is a challenge, retrieving a data is a challenge because it is in an encrypted state. So that is where the answer is basically B. So this is all in my first part of this 32 question series. Do let me know how do you basically find this particular session, how do you find this scenario based questions, and wait for the second part which I am releasing in the next couple of weeks, which give you new insight of CCSP. So this is all from my side. Thank you so much for your suggestion, comments, and if you're new to the channel, do subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss my future videos on a similar topic. Good day. Bye.